Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm finally back with a new video. I know it's been about over 2 weeks now and I really just haven't filmed because I'm still like getting adjusted to having 2 kids now, and then on top of it I'm still doing my graduate classes, so I just wanted to get everything back on track with that before I started filming again. And also, if you hear any type of traffic, it's because I'm actually at my mom's house for the week, and I did that because my husband has been working like crazy, like from like 6 a.m. to really late at night. So I just decided for the first week of having Layla and Sean together, so Sean would have like a lot of attention, I decided to stay at my parents till Friday. So that is why I'm here, and the natural light is really bad, so I'm sitting at the front and right by a lot of traffic. So if you hear any cars, that's why. Anyways, this video is the long-awaited labor and delivery story. I am just so glad to have that over with. It is definitely an experience, but I'm so glad to be done with labor. Like, it's crazy. So I'm going to tell you the whole story from the beginning. I had Layla, let's see, I'll start it on Tuesday. Tuesday night I had finished doing my schoolwork or whatever, and I was doing that and I was sitting down, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm born on the 13th, Sean's born on the 15th, my husband was born on the 17th, so I'm thinking, okay, it'd be so cool because that day was the 26th, Tuesday night. I was like, it'd be cool if she came on the 27th because it would be like an odd day, like we'd all have odd days. So I went to bed and I literally woke up at 2 in the morning, and I remember feeling like, I felt like she was all the way on the like side of my stomach, like pushing really hard. So I was like, this is weird, you know. So I rubbed my belly, and to put her right back like in the middle, I was rubbing my belly so she'd move herself back in the middle. So I did that, and I started to go back to sleep, and I felt like she moved again, but it was like kind of painful. So I was like, that's weird. So I kept rubbing her again to put her back in the middle, and that time I was like, you know, this is weird because, you know, it hasn't hurt like that before. So I got up and I sat in like our rocker chair, like rocking chair in the room, and I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I was holding my stomach, and I'm like, let me wait and see for like what happens if she moves again. And I felt it happen again, but she didn't move at all, and it was like my entire stomach was like tightening, and that's when I knew. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm having contractions. And these were all, I'd say, about 15 minutes apart, around like that time frame. And so I sat there again, and from then they were 10 minutes apart, and I'm like, oh wow, this is crazy. I sat through 2 more of them, and then after I sat through 2 more of them, I was like, you know what, I better call my mom because she's coming from 3 hours away in New Jersey. So I was like, I better call her so she'll get here in time, because if they're 10 minutes apart, it's probably going to be sooner, considering last time I had SJ, when they were 10 minutes apart, by the time they got to 3 to 5 minutes, it was 3 hours later. So I called her, and she actually didn't pick up. She was, I think it was straight to voicemail or something. So I called my little sister, and she picked up, and then she told my mom, and basically my mom had spoke to me, and she was like, you know, are these contractions? And I'm like, you know, I really don't remember. I think they are, because it's like really tight, and I never felt that before during the entire pregnancy of Layla. So what happened was, she told me that she was getting her stuff together, and she's gonna get my sister, and they're going to come down. My dad wanted to come down, but he couldn't because my mom has like 3 dogs, so it's not like he can come down. They could leave the dogs because there'd be no one else to watch them. So my dad stayed up in Jersey, and my sister, my mom, and my aunt came down. And by the time, what happened was, after I called them, I'd say this was around 6 o'clock. My husband had to go to work, and he was sitting with me, and that's when they were like 10 minutes apart. And he was like, you know, you have to call me if anything happens, because my job, you know, like the way his job works is, he would not be able to leave until like they admitted me into the hospital. So he went on to work, and then I decided I was going to take a nap, because they were still like 10 minutes apart, but enough like where I was tired and it wasn't like it was hurting too bad. So I took a nap, and my family got there around 9 o'clock. And for me, I woke back up at 8. And I literally, from 8 to 9, probably had like 1 contraction. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? They're slowing down. I had my family come all the way from Jersey, and they're not, like, nothing's happening. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I hope, you know, it's not like a false labor. So when they got there, my contractions were probably, I'd say, about like every 30 minutes. So I told my mom they were like every 10 minutes apart. And then she was like, well, we'll get something to eat. And I said, well, after we get something to eat, I want to go to the park because I just need to walk. I feel like that'll help me. You know, I need to get out and just walk and make them come back to being the time that, you know, they're supposed to be. So we went, where did we go? I think we got something from Hardee's, and then like we all went to the park, and our park is really big. They have like a huge lake. So I think you guys seen it before because I've shown it a few times. But so we walked around, almost around the entire lake, and we were walking for I'd say like an hour and a half, and literally I would have contractions maybe like 45 minutes to an hour apart. Sometimes they'd be half an hour, but it was never like consistent, and it was like, to me it seemed like they were slowing down, and I'm like, this is crazy because I don't want to have my family here and, you know, they leave and then something happens where it comes back. So after we went to the park, we came home, and my mom told me she was going to stay around Delaware till around 5 o'clock, and if nothing happened then she would go back. So I was fine with that. We just hung out at the house for a little bit, and I just remember getting like tired, so I took a nap again. And then what else happened? My husband had kept calling all throughout the day to make sure that, you know, I wasn't going into labor or anything like that. And I remember, what else happened after that? Oh, after that we took a nap. After I took a nap, my mom and my aunt and Sean, they went out for a little bit. I think my mom had said she wanted to go to Walgreens to get batteries for a camera just in case. So they went to Walgreens, and I was like, well, you know, my contractions are basically stopped. You know, my husband's about to come home from work. I'll just make dinner. And my sister and everybody were like, why are you gonna make dinner? I'm like, I don't care, you know, I'll make it. So I'm standing there making dinner, and my husband and I got home by then, and him and my sister were joking around and stuff like that. They're like, oh, you know, Kym just wanted to have a party. You know, she's clearly not in labor. She just wanted to have people around her. She was bored today. You know, joking around and stuff like that. And literally in the middle of my cooking, all of a sudden, like, my contractions came back, and they were all like, I'd say every 5 to 6 minutes apart. And it was like they came back full force out of nowhere. So you're probably going to see it in the vlog, because that's really when we started vlogging, because I had figured I wasn't going to go into labor. There was no point in even starting a vlog. So that's literally when I started filming, or my sister started filming. She's so funny. But yeah, so basically then after they went to 5 minutes, they jumped to like 3 to 5 minutes. My mom came back. Everybody was rushing around. No one knew what to do. Like, it's funny because it was like no one was expecting the contractions to come back. They're like, oh yeah, right, you know, this is a joke. You know, my husband was even laying on the couch like, okay, this is not happening, you know, this is, you know, she's just joking around. And then like when it literally came to 3 minutes, everybody's like rushing around like, oh my gosh, we gotta get her to the hospital, because the hospital's like half an hour from where I live. So everyone wanted to come to the hospital. Even my aunt wanted to come to the hospital, and she was supposed to stay at the house and watch my son, but literally everybody came. Sorry, I had to go get her because she was crying. I had to change her little diaper. She woke up from her nap. But this is Laila. Say hi, Laila. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so everybody was rushing to get to the hospital. We all went in my mom's car. My husband drove about 10 minutes later because his job is like right down the street, and so he didn't know if they would let him get off or not, so he had to bring his stuff for the next day. And when we got to the hospital, I remember walking in, and there was a security guard, like a woman security guard and 2 male security guards, and they were like, you know, where are you going? Because it was like, what, 8 o'clock we got there at night. And we told them that I was in labor, and she's like, oh my gosh, get a wheelchair for her, sit her down, you know. So we all, you know, they got a wheelchair, we all went upstairs, and I told the nurses I was in labor, and they asked me if, you know, how, like, if it was my first or my second, or, you know, if it was more than one. I told them this is my second child, so they knew, like, I knew I was in labor. So they took me into, like, a room that kind of looks like something you see on Grey's Anatomy with, like, one wall being glass. But they took me into the room in there, and they had me, they took me by myself at first. They had me sit down, put on like, you know, the gown, and then they had something strapped to my stomach just to do like the fetal, like to make sure that she was breathing well and stuff like that. And going on with my contractions, they wanted to see how they were going. So I was in there, and they were timing my contractions, and they weren't they went back to 10 minutes apart, but they weren't like, they were very strong when they came. Like they were 10 minutes apart, but they were like lasting like 2 minutes for each one. And so then she decided, you know, because of how it was, she said, let me check to see how many centimeters you're dilated. So they checked, and she was like, wow, it's a good thing you did wait to come in, because, you know, you're already 4 centimeters. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, because when I went in with Sean, I was 2, and then it came to 4. So I felt like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already like almost halfway there. So then she brought in the rest of my family, and she told me they were going to move me into the labor and birthing room, but she had to put my IV and stuff on first. So they brought in the rest of my family. She asked me if I wanted to do natural or, you know, epidural, and I told her I plan on going natural the whole time. So she was very like, once I told her I was going natural, she was like all for it. And it was good because, you know, some nurses are like, well, if you need an epidural, let me know. Like she was just like, okay, since you're planning on going natural, we're gonna do this. Like she was definitely like supportive, so that was good. So that time my aunt and my son were still there, and they decided to sit in the waiting room until I gave birth, because they figured since I was going natural, it would be like midnight the baby would come. My mom was going to drive them back to my apartment, but they really wanted to be around, well, my aunt really wanted to be around for when the baby was born. So she just sat out there, and Sean literally fell asleep within a minute because that was his bedtime anyway. But the people who were in the room with me was my sister, my mom, and my husband. And I'm so glad my sister was in the room with me, because if you can see from the vlog, like she was so good. Like she should have been a midwife. Like she was so good with the contraction. She'd be like, hold my hand, you know, just breathe, you got it. Like she would be over there, just count to 5, and as soon as it's over of counting, you know, there'll be no more contractions, squeeze my hand, you got it. My mom would be over there like, is it done? And I'm in the middle of like a contraction, and she's like, is it done yet, Kym? Is it done? And I'm like, really? So Brittany was very good with that, and my husband, he didn't know what to do. He looked like he was in shock. Like I swear, you would think he had never been in a delivery room before, but like it was so funny. My mom and my husband did not know what to do, but my sister was like completely amazing. So they moved me into a labor and delivery room, and I remember the room being like super cold, and they put me in the bed, and I was still having contractions and things like that. But since I was natural, they told me I can move around. If I wanted to, I can get on the like it looks like an exercise ball. I can get on there and sit down and rock and stuff like that. And they told me I can also walk the hall if I wanted to. But I was just like, when you are in contractions, honestly, you don't want to, I didn't want to move. Like I just wanted to lay there. And she even told me like the way I was laying, it was kind of slowing down the contraction, so I needed to like keep shifting and stuff like that. And by that time we were in the room, it was like, I'd say it was around 11 o'clock then, and the nurse was like, you know, the baby could come here in a minute, so if you guys want to get some food, you should, because the hospital, like their cafeteria is closed, and there's only so many things around there that was closed. So my husband and Brittany went out, and they got me, like they were trying to give me a sub, because the nurse said I'd be hungry, and I'm like, I'm not hungry right now. Like I don't want any food, I just want this baby out of me. So they went out to get coffee and some subs, and my mom had stayed there, and I remember I was having a contraction while my mom was like holding my hand, and I was like, I cannot squeeze her hand as hard as I squeeze my sister's, because I'd probably break her hand. So I was just like, I can't wait for Brittany to get back, because like I swear I was putting all of my like feelings into Brittany's hand. I felt so bad, because like I probably killed her hand. Like she told me at one point, like I squeezed so hard, she was like, I'm never gonna tell her to squeeze my hand again. But they came back, and by then I remember I was like probably 7 centimeters. I was at 7 for a while. I remember I was at 7 for at least a good maybe hour and a half, and that's when the nurse told me I needed to get up. So they put me on an exercise ball, and I'm bouncing on it. I'm like, well, this isn't so bad. And then a contraction came, and it took everything for me to hold onto that ball. I say, if you don't get me off of this thing, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So they took me back off of the ball. I laid back down in the bed, but I laid in a different position. And then I remember it was just like the contractions started coming so strong, and this was probably, yeah, it was around 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just remember I had a contraction so strong, I just felt like my water was gonna break, and then it broke. And it was just, it's so weird when your water breaks. It's like, the first time when my water broke with Sean, I didn't feel it at all, because I had an epidural. So they were like, oh, your water broke. And I'm like, oh, cool. But this time it was like, it felt like a river was coming out of me. It was like so much water. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, the bed is going to be soaking wet. But like they had put like some pad underneath me, so literally like they just took it off and it was gone. But when I had another contraction, like more water came out, and it was just like, it was a lot of water. I didn't think I had that much water in me. It felt like literally like a river was coming out of me. And so after all of that, the nurse came in, and you know, we told her my water broke, and she had told me, okay, well, you know, since it's 2 o'clock, your water broke, we're gonna put you on Pitocin to get your contractions really going so the baby will come. And I remember everybody was always like, you know, don't use, like, you don't want Pitocin because it'll really make your contractions come. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was scared. Like, I was so scared. So she put me on the Pitocin, and literally like within 10 minutes my contractions were coming. They weren't coming fast, they were still coming like every 10 minutes, but they would last like 3 minutes for each one, and they would last forever. And it would be like to the point where I would ask my sister, like, because you could see the thing going up and down, and I'd ask my sister and my husband, because they'd be standing there looking at it, I'd be like, is it going down? And Brittany would be like, oh yeah, it's going down, it's going down. Ken, my husband, would be like, no, it's still there. And so it was just like, I was in so much pain. I just remember being in so much pain every time the contraction came. Like, I literally felt like I was gonna pass out. Like, my eyes were rolling in the back of my head. Like, it was crazy. So at one point I had a contraction so bad, I told the nurse, I said, look, I need an epidural. Like, I was screaming, give me an epidural. My husband and my mom were like, but you know, you really said you didn't want one. And I'm just like, well, you need to give me something, because I can't take it. Like, I can't. And plus on top of it, I think personally I was getting so scared that it was so close to the end, because I was probably at 8-9 centimeters in. I was getting so scared that I would have to push, and it was just scared. It was, to me, I think it was like a mental thing with my mind. Like, I was freaking myself out, like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything and I'm about to push. So the nurse came in, she said, well, you know, you really don't want an epidural because you had said you didn't want one. She's like, but I can give you some, I don't know what it was, but it was like pain medication through an IV, and it wasn't like strong like an epidural. So I was like, okay, I'll take that. So she had ended up giving it to me twice, because the first time she gave it to me, it literally wore off within like half an hour. But the thing is, that medicine was so weird. It literally feels like you're high or something. And I've never been high, I'm just saying. It literally feels like you are, I don't know how to explain it. It's like everything that happens, you accept it, you feel it, but your mind accepts what's going on. But at the same time, it's like, I just felt like, I felt so drugged up. Let's just put it that way. I felt very drugged up. So they ended up giving it to me twice, and by then it was like I was going in and out of sleep because I was so drugged up. So I remember though, when I got to like 9 centimeters, I was telling her, I was like, listen, I'm pushing. You know, like I'm really pushing right now. She's like, no, you really don't want to push right now because you're not at 10 centimeters. You're going to tear. And I was just like, listen, I'm pushing. Like, and she was like telling me not to. I'm like, I'm pushing. I kept screaming at her, I'm pushing, I'm pushing. And so then after I finished, like, I would say about 2 to 3 of those, like, where it really felt like, look, you can't tell me I can't push right now because I'm gonna push. So after that happened, she checked me again. She's like, okay, good, you're 10 centimeters. She's like, now I'm gonna go get the doctor. I was like, forget the doctor, we don't need her, like, let's go. I literally told the nurse that, and she's like, I'm gonna go get the doctor. So I'm still sitting there in pain, and I was telling my mom and my sister, I said, I'm gonna push her out. Like, it's just like, I couldn't hold it in anymore, I'm gonna push her out. And so my mom was there, and she's like, you know, if you really need to push her, you know, because she was like, there's really no point in like waiting for this doctor, because we already remember the first time I went to labor, we waited for the doctor like an hour, and there was no way I was going to wait for an hour when this baby was coming out. So it really wasn't that long. It was probably, I'd say, about 10 minutes we had to wait for her, maybe tops 10 minutes. She came in and it was time to go. Like, they took my legs and you know, they put them up, and I literally was just, I had to push her out. And I remember it was so funny too, because when I was pushing oh yeah, I forgot to say, with the epidural thing though, like, this is how bad the IV medicine is. At one point, so the nurse was like, oh, did you feel the medicine? And I was like, my sister told me, I didn't even remember this, but I put my hand up like this, And I was up like this for like a whole minute, and then my sister put my hand back down. She was like, she feels the medicine. And the nurse was like, oh yeah, she feels it. But I don't remember that part. But anyways, when it was time to push, I was pushing, and I just remember, like, it just feels like, I know this sounds like TMI, but it just feels like a huge poop. Like, it just feels so, like, I don't know how to explain it. And when you're pushing, it hurts, but it's like you want to get it out. Like, I think the pushing actually hurts less than the contractions, to be honest with you. But it was funny because I was pushing, and you know how at the side of the bed they have those rails in the hospital? Well, on the rails they have buttons where you can move up and down. Well, I'm pushing, I go to hold on to the rail, and my elbow, I guess, pushes the button, and I start going up. So my legs are going up, and I'm like, I'm looking at this nurse because I'm thinking she's doing it. I said, why are you moving me up? And she's like, I'm not moving you up, sweetie. So she presses the button, and I get back down. And so I put my hand up again during a contraction to push, and I'm literally going up again. I'm like, she keeps moving the bed. And the nurse was like, I'm really not. And so she clicked it again, and that's when I guess I realized it was me. But the meds were so bad. Like, I was still, even when I was pushing, I was going, like, it felt like I was going in and out of consciousness. Because I remember, like, closing my eyes, seeing one nurse, opening again, and seeing like 5 different people around me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where did all these nurses come from? And I just remember pushing one last time because they told me, like, I literally pushed for like 15 minutes and she was out. Like, before it was Sean, I pushed for like an hour and a half with the epidural. And when I pushed with her, after the 15 minutes, she came out. And I remember I still felt like I needed to push, and I'm like, oh my god, I hope I don't have twins in there. But they told me it was because of the placenta that makes you feel like you still need to push. So they had got the placenta out. And what else happened? I just remember, like, it was just, after I pushed, I just remember, I think I passed out for a little. Like, I was out for maybe a good 5-10 minutes after that. Like, it's just, and I remember she was really, like, taking forever to get the placenta out, and it was really bothering me. And I'm like, is she done? And she was like, you know, just 1 minute, I want to make sure everything's out. And then also she told me that I didn't need to, what did she say? She said I didn't need any stitches. I didn't tear at all. She said I had like this, such a tiny tear that she didn't even want to bother stitching it up because you can't even see it really. And which is true, because afterwards I was able to get up, go to the bathroom. And I remember I felt pain one time when I went to the bathroom, and that was it. So I definitely am so glad I went natural, because it was just like, it was such a painful experience going through it, but afterwards the recovery is so amazing. It's so much different than if you were to have an epidural. Like, within one day, at the end of the day, I'm walking around by myself. Like, the thing is though, whoever held my leg, I think it was my husband, whoever held my leg though on the right side, like, they held it the wrong way, so when I was pushing it kind of strained on my leg. So now it's like my leg bothers me when I walk on it, but it's not compared to like the epidural where I can't even stand on it. Like, for a whole week I couldn't stand on it with epidural. But with the with this birth, I was able to like still get up, walk around. I was like, I had no problems with anything. So I would definitely recommend doing natural. And when she came out, she was 7 pounds 3 ounces, and she was 20 inches long. So she was definitely, or 20.5 inches long. She was definitely bigger than Sean, because Sean was only 7 pounds and he was only 19 inches. So she was definitely the bigger one of the two. So after I gave birth, they moved me into the room that I would be in for the next couple days. And they also told me when she first came out, she had like respiratory problems for a little bit because of the medicine that they gave me. It was making her heart beat really fast, but like it went back down. They were like, okay, she's fine. So I don't know if I would recommend doing the IV medicine either, because it did bother her. But after that, they put me in the room, and then they told me that she had like a slight case of jaundice. And so they made me have her underneath the lights, and we were supposed to be there. This was Thursday that I gave birth. I ended up giving birth, I didn't even give the time. I ended up giving birth at 5:46 in the morning. Sorry, that's people outside. I ended up giving birth at 5:46 in the morning, and that was on a Thursday. I didn't go home till about 6 o'clock in the evening on a Sunday. And that we were supposed to go home Saturday afternoon, but the doctors made us stay one more day. because her jaundice hadn't gone down, but it was like lower for her age because she was getting older. They said by days it goes down. It was weird. It's confusing. But they made us stay another day, and they had us keep her underneath the UV light. And I have a picture of that, I think, on the vlog for you guys to see. But yeah, I felt so bad for her in there because they didn't let her wear any clothes or anything, and the rooms were cold. So I would keep her in there for a few hours and then take her out because I didn't want her to catch a cold or anything like that. But on Sunday they let us go home, and then Monday we went back to the hospital because she had to take another test. And she had so many tests done, literally, like, because they would prick her bottom of her foot to take out the you know, the blood or whatever. And she had so many little pricks at the bottom of her foot. I felt so bad for her. But on Monday we went back for her last test. Then Tuesday we went to her doctor's, and she said her jaundice was like almost completely gone. She was really good, to the point that I don't need to bring her back till her month checkup. So that's really good. I'm really happy about that because I felt so bad for her. But that's basically all of my labor and delivery story. It's really long and definitely different, completely different than Sean's. But I figured I'd let you know what happened, and I'm sorry it took so long to put it up. I would always say, oh, I'm going to do it, and then the day would be gone. So I'm glad I finished it now to show you guys. But yeah, let me see if I can bring her close to you so you guys can see her. So this is Laila. Laila. Let's see if I can bring her in. That's Laila. She's such a sleepyhead. So yeah, that's Laila, and she's been doing so good with the breastfeeding. Like, she was a pro. As soon as she was born, she latched right on. She's doing amazing with breastfeeding. What else do I have to say? Oh, she sleeps so long, which is crazy for a newborn. Like, literally the first 2 days she slept for every 2 hours. After that, she's been sleeping like 3 to 4 hours, like, at least. Sometimes she can sleep for 4.5, 5 hours. It's like, it's crazy for a newborn. So I'm definitely happy about that because I get to sleep more. I feel like I got a lot more sleep with her so far than with Sean, so that's good. But that's really it. I'm going to start back into making videos. I just had stopped for 2 weeks just to give Laila and Sean and my schoolwork some attention before I started back into everything full force. So after this video, I'd say tomorrow I'm going to be putting up the vlog. I wanted to wait until I did my story first so you guys could kind of understand, because the vlog doesn't really have everything, and it would just like jump start you into when I was going into labor. So yeah, I will definitely be putting that one up tomorrow, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.